And then later this afternoon, it almost sounded like the mainstream media was disappointed when they couldn't get the president's doctor to say he wasn't in good health physically and mentally. I was glued to this all afternoon. So the president's doctor came out and gave the guy a clean bill of health, Greg. And as you've said, this is the most transparent president ever. And the fact that they gave specific details about his diet, his exercise, even his mental faculties, makes you think, God, what else is there to know?
Well, first of all, I think it's Cory Booker who needs a cognitive exam. I think he was losing his mind or just overacting a little bit. The best part of this press conference were reporters grilling this guy about diet and exercise. Have you ever seen a reporter's diet? Have you ever seen a reporter exercise? You saw that disheveled mess in the back. I can't think of his name. It's some guy.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Exactly. His hair's all over. He was asking about cholesterol. That guy, like, inhales cholesterol. They have the health of a hobo. Trump, you have to understand, I think a lot of young people don't get this. He's your old school uncle. There's no Pilates. There's no meditation. There's no organic kale. He eats what's in front of him, usually covered in ketchup. But then he's healthier than a yoga instructor because he's healthy like a bull as opposed to healthy like a ballet dancer. It's like old school health. He might be like this forever, but then he might drop. But that's like everybody knows yep. These kinds of people.
Strong like bull.
Yeah, so they're just like, they don't do what you're supposed to do. They just do what they want.
Yep.
So he eats whatever he wants, and he doesn't exercise except when he plays golf, Kimberly. But he doesn't smoke tobacco, never has, and doesn't drink. And the doctor actually says that if he hadn't eaten all this McDonald's his whole life, he could have been 200 years old and still been kicking. But he's got great stamina. He barely sleeps, I think 4 to 5 hours a day. What was your assessment of the president's exam?
Well, I mean, it's in keeping with how people that are close to him know that his health and physical condition is. In that, he is active with golf. He loves to play golf. And he has, I guess, a very good genetic composition in terms of, he's able to enjoy good health and get good numbers. And this is what he was telling people. But now he's got, the additional proof to back it up. And I don't know. I mean, maybe the important thing, too, is he doesn't drink, alcohol, and he's not smoking. And I think that also probably helps him a lot.
Absolutely. And
the smoking, not the drinking.
The president himself requested, Dana, the cognitive exam. And I think it was obviously to put to rest a lot of the commentary from the press about his mental faculties. And they gave him the hardest level, and he scored 30 for 30. Yeah. And does it put to rest the claim that the president is mentally unfit?
Yeah, so the Democrats are going to have to come to the realization that all the things that they hate that he's doing with his full faculties. Okay, so...
What does that make him feel now?
I think he would... And he also asked the doctor to stand up there as long as it took to answer all of their questions so that they couldn't say they got stonewalled on anything. And so obviously he's in excellent health. One of the questions was about how could it possibly be that he's in such good health? And one of the things is genetics, certainly. But also I do think that there's something to be said about abstaining from alcohol, drugs, and tobacco. I know, but if you look at some of these folks that are able to do that in their lives, they end up being pretty healthy. Look at Mitt Romney was like that. And I think that I will not be able to put
name another one.
Well, I was thinking about 43 because he, one of the things that the media obsessed with him was that he had drank until he was 40 and then he stopped drinking. But every year when we did the physical, they obsessed over how many cigars did he smoke.
Interesting.
And that was going to be the thing that was going to be the sure issue that made him not be able to be president.
So, Juan, the myth about the president's unfitness mentally has been busted by the White House doctor himself.
Wait a second.
Would you care to...
It was a cognitive exam, not a psychological exam.
Yes, a cognitive exam.
Right. So
he scored 30 for 30.
That's different than saying that, all the narcissism, all the impulsiveness, that's normal. He didn't say that.
President Obama was never narcissist at all, right? Didn't he say he was going to lower the sea levels himself?
You want to change the topic, right? Go ahead and change the topic.
I want to talk about president's fitness all day.
So here's the president's fitness. He did very well on this exam, right? And you should give him credit where credit is due. But I think what you guys are up to is saying, look at these reporters. And by the way, Gregory.
Yes.
I exercise and I try to eat well. Okay,
That's
so
your problem.
So I think the big problem is that someone who is not drinking, not smoking dope, not doing anything, somehow in the middle of the night is sending out these offensive tweets. That might be the news. But to me, he's in good health, and that should be acknowledged. But the reporters, I think, had every right to ask questions about, well, what's going on with this guy who eats McDonald's and behaves in this way, trying to get at some understanding of what is at the root of his dysfunction at times.
Well, I think what you're trying to diagnose a personality as a medical condition. Sometimes, effective bosses, you don't have to like them. You can be a jerk. I've said it before. I'd rather have a jerk doctor who saves my kid's life than a charming doctor who lets the kid die. So the fact is, when Acosta asked the same question, well, that was a cognitive exam. It wasn't a psychiatric one. Is that? And then they go, yes, that's right. He goes, aha. So he is crazy. No, you cannot.
Did you accuse Juan of stealing CNN Jim Acosta's question?
Juan wasn't watching it, but you can predict. You can predict this stuff.
I actually think we have some sound from these reporters asking about the president's fitness. Go ahead.
Can you assess the president's mental fitness for office?
I'm going to do a cognitive exam. I had no intention of doing one. The president did exceedingly well on it. So that was not driven at all by any clinical concerns I have. It was driven by the president's wishes.
An incident recently where the president appeared to slur his words while giving an address. Did you look into what the cause of that might have been?
We evaluated him. We checked everything out, and everything was normal.
That suggested that could be related to dentures. Does the president wear dentures?
The president has no partial or dentures of any kind.
Do you believe he is fit for duty?
Absolutely, he's fit for duty. I think he will remain fit for duty for the remainder of this term and even for the remainder of another term.
Can you talk a bit about him as a patient?
Just like every other president I've taken care of, on occasion I have to get the First Lady involved.
Explain to me how a guy who eats McDonald's and fried chicks and all those Diet Cokes and who never exercises is in as good a shape as you say he's in.
It's called genetics. I don't know. It's some people have just great genes. I told the president that if he had a healthier diet over the last 20 years, he might live to be 200 years old. I don't know.
All the doctors and clinicians all across the country who have said that in this president they see symptoms of this, that, and the other.
Symptoms in what way?
Well, symptoms of dementia.
People shouldn't be making those kinds of assessments about the president unless they've had the opportunity to get to know him and examine him. And, in my opinion, that's just tabloid psychiatry.
Wow, that was a pretty aggressive response. So great genes. When will the president tweet that he has great genes?
Right now. I think about 6:32 tomorrow morning.
Right, when he slept only 4 hours. I think the denture comment you also liked because we talked about when it seemed like he was slurring one time. The doctor said he prescribed Sudafed, and that might have made him dry.
The doctor basically said, we looked into it as an anomaly, not a big deal. But then one of the rumors had been, well, maybe it's because he has dentures, and I don't think anyone ever actually asked the White House about that. I wouldn't, and I don't care whoever has dentures. But anyway, that's all clarified now. The president does not have dentures of any kind.
That's right.
Now, our Polygrip sponsor is going to be very upset. By the way,
and that is his hair.
My favorite.
Jesse saw it.
My favorite question was the British reporter who asked the doctor if Trump asked the doctor how he could be as healthy as Barack Obama.
Oh,
that was fantastic. Only a British reporter.
Remember Obama was the 10-pound weights at the gym?
Smoking.
And smoking.
That was
rumored to be smoking, right? Maybe that's why he was playing so much golf. Juan, so the president called for the cognitive test, and he got it. It was the first time a cognitive test was ever issued towards a sitting president. Oh, okay. And do you feel now better about the president of the United States?
About his health. I think there was good news about his health.
Very good. You should be happy about it.
Well, I certainly am. He's my president, too. He doesn't act like it, but he is. But I will
You want to talk to him about it?
I don't. You know what? At this point, the question is, what do you say to this guy? I don't know. So let's say he's just totally sane and he's in good health. So he has no excuses. Oh, my God.
Kimberly, the most amusing part, I thought, was when the doctor said, sometimes I have to get the First Lady involved when he needs to take his pills.
Yeah, well, she's got to, step in and make sure that he listens and takes his vitamins.
That's right.
And, but
it's multivitamin.
But that's kind of sweet, isn't it, right? Like husbands and wives do that, and they help each other out. And
we all want him to be healthy.
Yeah, well,
my wife doesn't do that with me. She tries to get me to eat more cheeseburgers.
She hides your pills.
She hides the pills.
Interesting. That might be a personal situation. When
more of that
when 43 choked on a pretzel and passed out and hit his head at the White House, how scary of a moment was that?
Well, I was not a press office person then. I was in a different part of the White House. But a friend of mine was the duty officer that day, and the press absolutely went wild. But that was very scary. I mean, and
carbohydrates.
Remember that show 6 Feet Under?
Yeah.
And I asked my mom one time, I was telling her about it, and she said, my biggest fear is choking when I'm alone, choking on a piece of food when I'm alone, and nobody knows about it, and I die. And I'm like, Mom, that never happens. Then that episode happened with the president. Of course, obviously, he was totally fine. But like in the 2 weeks later, 6 Feet Under, that happens as the key episode.
It was also in Sex and the City. Remember when Miranda was alone?
I don't remember.
Greg, you just outed yourself.
As a Sex and the City fan.
As if we already didn't know.
But I would say this. I do think the media obsesses about a president's health. It should be a one-day story now. I think it is a good thing that the president had this exam and had the doctor answer all those questions. A lot of these questions were perpetuated by the doctor's note that he released during the campaign that was like, this is the most amazing guy. It turns
Crazy
out
doctor.
the guy was right. But it wasn't very believable at the time.
All right.